Right, so this is video 2 of 3 that I am doing to assist students with how to deal with discussion questions in assessments. Now, the information that is given in example 1, I've taken from an example case study adapted from your textbook, Students' Approach from Natural Persons. And I want you to pause the video at this point and I want you to read through the information, right? So pause, read through the information, and when you get back, I will show you and we'll have a look at what it is that you need to think about. Right, so welcome back. As you read through the information, what you should have noticed is that we're dealing with a natural person, and he erected a billboard on the pavement outside his business premises. Now, if I read business premises and I can see that he's busy with a security business, now these are all the things that's going through my head as I'm reading through this, then this guy's clearly busy trading. The billboard cost him 30,000 Rand. He paid 80,000 Rand for advertisements that appear every Saturday in a local newspaper. So it's like a recurring expense in which his security services are advertised. The local municipality fined him 10,000 Rand because this billboard obstructed pedestrian traffic, and then he had to pay another 2,000 Rand to move the billboard from outside his boundary to within his boundary. Okay, now, you know what the information is? Now we need to go and have a look at the required. Okay, so we need to analyze this required, because you are not just going to jump in and start answering. Okay, first thing, what do we need to do? We need to discuss. Okay, so discuss means you are writing in full sentences, you are writing paragraphs, you are not just putting down calculations, although calculations can be used to support your discussion. Right? Discuss what? Which of the above amounts? Okay, now which amounts are we dealing with? We've got a billboard of 30,000 Rand, we've got 80,000 Rand for advertisements, we've got a fine of 10,000, and we've got moving costs for the billboard of 2,000 Rand. So you have to deal with all of those amounts in your answer. If any, Max will be able to deduct, and ladies and gentlemen, if we talk about deductions at this point in time, the first thing that should jump out at you or that you need to think about is the general deduction formula that we find within the Normal Income Tax Act. And deduct where? In the calculation of his taxable income. And if I read taxable income, immediately I know, okay, we are talking about a framework. Do I know what that framework looks like? Yes, I've got gross income, less exemptions gives me income, less deductions gives me taxable income. Right. How many marks is this? 20 marks, which means multiply 20 by 1.5. I have 30 minutes to answer this question. Okay, so now we know what is required of us. Again, you are not just going to rush in and start writing. You have to plan. And we plan our answer using the Zorro method or the IPAC method. So firstly, we need to identify what the issues are. The issue is that if you look at the general deduction formula, it's got a list of components that all need to be complied with before you can claim a deduction. So the problems that we have is we've got the erection of a billboard. What component does it relate to? Well, my issue here will probably be of a capital nature. The recurring advertising costs, now that will not necessarily represent an issue for me because it's a recurring expense. So I might not have to write as much about that one, but I still need to address it because I have to deal with all amounts. Then the fine, it's an illegal activity, but you also need to think about, whether this was actually in the production of income. And then, moving costs, again, because it relates to the billboard, I need to think about whether it's of a capital nature. So I've identified the legislation that applies and I've highlighted my issues. And always, if you are in a discussion question, you need to think about Section 102 of the Tax Administration Act, right? So that's the first part. I've identified my issues, okay? What principles am I going to use? Now, if you think about the billboard and you think about capital in nature, I'm thinking about court cases like BP South Africa, New State Areas, Rand Mines. For the advertising, because it's recurring, those same court cases will tell me that this is probably not of a capital nature. With a fine, if you're thinking about in production of income, I'm thinking about PE Electric Tramway. And because it's a fine, I also need to think about specific legislation, which is Section 23, those prohibited deductions. And then moving, again, because we're thinking about capital in nature, you're thinking BP South Africa, New State Areas, or Rand Mines. Okay, now, it's great because this is the theory, but theory means nothing if you cannot apply it to the information in the question. So next is application. So taking my theory and applying it to the information in the question to come to a conclusion. Are these amounts, all of them or any one of them, are they deductible? Right. So now I've planned my answer. I know more or less where, what I need to address, and now I can start answering my question, right? So this was video 2 of 3. You now need to go to video 3 of 3.